Alright guys, welcome back to this episode of This Dude Draws. Today we're going to be doing some visual effects. Now for those of you who don't know what visual effects is, or CGI, I'll give you a little example. It's if you're watching Fast and Furious and there's a scene where the car drives off a mountain and swings from a helicopter, that obviously can't be real. No one can do that in real life. So what they do is they create that the car and the helicopter and that swing effect with computer graphics or 3D models, and then they composite that, they render it out, they composite it into real footage, like drone footage or something. And then your final scene looks like it was shot in real life. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So in one of my previous videos, I created a Black Panther mask. If you haven't checked that out, please, it would be great if you guys just went and watched that video and supported me there. But it was a lot of fun to make, and if you guys are interested in seeing a tutorial, then just let me know. The reason I didn't put a tutorial of that video is because it took me over 3 hours to create that mask. So the tutorial would be very long, but I could always condense it if you guys are interested. So moving on. I thought I wanted to take our Black Panther mask and animate and composite it into real footage and see if it looks realistic. So what I did, I just went online and downloaded some footage of Black Panther, of the movie, where he's not wearing his mask. So everybody knows this scene. This is a really popular scene where Killmonger thought that he killed Black Panther, but then he comes walking up and it's like, no, you didn't kill me. So what I want to do is motion track this scene and animate the helmet over him, and then at the end of the day we'll have a final scene of where he's wearing his helmet and see if it looks convincing or real. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So before I do that, I do just want to mention we're going to be using this add-on called AE2 Blend. So it's After Effects to Blender. Now this plugin is incredible, and it only costs $10 on the Blender market, and I would highly suggest that you go and get this. So I don't use the motion tracking in Blender, or Blender's motion tracking. I find it very confusing. I've tried watching 100 tutorials. I've spent many hours trying to track footage successfully, and I just can't seem to get it right. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, or I'm missing a step, or not understanding. But I found that the camera tracking in After Effects is so easy to use, and it's so powerful. It's literally one click. So what you can do is we will track the footage in After Effects and then just transfer that data of the camera into Blender, where we can add our 3D models. And I will show you how to do that now. And it's so simple. So you want to open up After Effects. And in our project panel, we want to import our Black Panther footage. There we go. And then just drag it into our composition. So now it's loaded in here. And what's great is when you load footage in here, it shows you your frames per second already there. So with that, when we go into Blender later, we know that this is 60 frames per second because we need to adjust that. And when it, so when, let's start by just tracking this footage. So this is how easy it is, okay? So you're just gonna click there and you just type track, and then under the effects panel you're gonna see 3D camera tracker. You just drag this and drop that onto your footage, and then it's gonna take a few minutes to analyze the footage, and basically that's it. And it'll track the footage and create everything that needs to be created, and then we're gonna transfer that data into Blender. So let's just give it a few seconds and then I'll show you what to do from there. One thing I do want to mention is this footage I found online is not very high resolution. It's quite smudgy and it's not crisp. So keep in mind when you're rendering out of your 3D program, it's going to render really high quality and crisp. And when you composite that over other footage, it's not going to match because the quality of the footage is different. So we can use After Effects later to try and adjust our render to match this. But the best thing is to start off by getting really good quality footage. The better quality footage you have, the easier it's going to be for you to make it look realistic. So now our 3D camera solver is finished running, and you can see that it's tracked. There's not a lot of things to track in the background because it's all blurred out. But now After Effects is gone and tracked the Black Panther walking. So we can use that information. We're just going to go here. We want to put a helmet over his head. So what we're going to do is select his head as the surface where you would usually select the ground surface. Because we want that part of his head. So we're going to just scrub to a part on the timeline, and then we look for something where it matches an angle really nicely. So just look around till you find something, and you know, I think I was so close. I think that'll be fine. So I'm going to select those points. And you just hover there and left click, and you'll see that surface lines up with his forehead. And now I'm going to right click here and say I want to create set ground plane and origin, and then right click again and then say we want to create create 3 solids and camera. So actually, let's undo that. I just want to create solid and camera. So now, when you scrub your footage, you can see this plane is stuck to his head. And it looks very strange, but it is tracked perfectly. And I didn't have to do much. Blender did this. After Effects did all of this tracking for me. And now we're going to transfer this data over into Blender. And let me show you how easy that is. So the first thing you want to do, just keep in mind you have to install this plugin. So you just download the files. You're going to go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons. You say Install. Then you navigate to where it is selected, install it, search it, and then activate it here. And if you don't know how to do that, there are many tutorials online or on YouTube how to do that. It's really simple. So going back here, we're going to start by recreating. So that's the object that will represent his head, and we've got our camera. So what we want to do here is go drop this down, drop the transform down, select these 2 values, the position and the orientation on the camera. We're going to control copy, go to Blender, delete all of this stuff, we don't need it, and then we're just going to say create camera. So it's already recreated our camera, and if you play it, you can see your camera's in motion like it would be. Now, for some reason, just have a look here on your keyframes for your camera, the animation. It's supposed to start on frame 1, but when you copy the information over from After Effects, it starts on frame 0. So you need to just move all of these frames by selecting them all by pressing A and just shift them over to frame 1. And then we need to set our keyframe length, or the length of the video. So This video ends at frame 392, and we're just going to insert that 392. Okay, cool. Now we're going to go back to After Effects, go to our solid, drop down transform, select these 4 values. So anchor point, position, scale, and orientation, and say control copy. Go back to Blender and just say create plane. And now when I play this, you can see that'll be the head and this is your camera. Great. Now there's just a few things we need to quickly adjust. So we know it's 60 frames per second. So we need to go to Blender and change this to 60 frames per second. And then when you double click on the camera here in After Effects, you can see that the focal length is 68.78. So we go back here, we go to our camera and change the focal length to 67.8. I think it was 67.78. So 67.78. Right. And there we go. It recreated that for us. So that's obviously the head. And yeah, technically it didn't track it's not the object that's moving, it's the camera motion that's creating that motion. But it's fine. It works. And to quickly show you, we're going to just go to background images, add background image. And we're going to just open our movie clip here. Blender VFX footage. And when you open this, so you just want to increase those frames and bring up the opacity. So now you can see that plane is tracking his head. And that's all we need. Go back. I'm just going to scale this plane down. Okay, perfect. So there's many ways to do it. I wouldn't say that this is the correct way, but it worked, and it's fine. So what we need to do now is import our asset, our helmet. So we're going to go to Append, and I'm going to go to my project file of my Black Panther mask, and I'm just going to select my Blender file, go to Objects, and I'm going to select it and just deselect the things I don't need, like the lights and the camera. I'm going to go Append, and it's imported. I'm going to drop that into a new collection and call it mask. Then I'm just going to split the view here, go to my side view. Alright, now what we need to do is just rotate this mask so it's kind of facing the correct way. What I actually want to do is just go back here, and we can just do that here really. Go to rotate and rotate this, and we can just move it around till we match, and we can scale till we kind of match his the angle of his head. And you can go into wireframe mode, and then you can just play with these values. So let's line up the eyes and those things. Okay, cool. Just make that a little bit bigger. object. Okay. Cool. So now, if we play this, look at that. It looks like he's wearing the mask. How bloody cool is that? So obviously you could see his head sticking out there, but you can always paint that out in After Effects, so you just see the mask. So just select this. Let's just keep adjusting a little bit. All right. So I think that looks pretty cool. If we scrub through our footage here, you can see that the mask is moving and it looks really fantastic actually. And what we want to do now is we need to light the scene. So first let's go to Cycles and GPU, Compute, and then I'm going to go into the rendered view. Now what we need to do is obviously this scene isn't lit, so there's no lighting. We need to try and match the lighting of this scene. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, so I'm just gonna, you can just go here to your world properties, and I'm gonna go to color, environment, texture, open, and then I have an HDRI saved on my computer. You can just go to Polyhaven and go to HDRIs and look for Cypher Fontaine, or actually let's go, just search for Forest Slope 4K and download that, and you can open that in here, and then it already creates some realistic reflections and lighting. So that's looking kind of alright. Let's just pump up the brightness, and then we're going to go to film and put on the transparency setting, because we don't want to see the HDRI, we just want to see the effect that it has on the object. And if you give that a quick render, it's going to render the mask, only the mask, and you can see that it's got some reflections and lighting on it. Now yes, it's not, we don't see our footage here because we don't need it here. We're going to render this out as PNG files, and we're going to bring it into After Effects and composite it. So there we go. That's looking kind of alright, but now you can see that there's a backlight hitting him on his shoulders here. So we want to try and recreate that very roughly and quickly. I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to add a light. I'm just going to create an area light, very quick and rough. Scale that up, bring that to behind him, and make sure the light is pointing in the right direction. Just make it big again, and then we want to pump up the light here until we start getting a nice rim light. So that didn't work, so pump it up. It needs to be even stronger. I'm just gonna go quickly to like 30,000 watts. So already you can see there's a rim light forming. It's still not strong enough. Double that, 60,000. Cool. I think I want to make it smaller so the physical rim effect is better. Maybe it just needs to come down a bit and rotate it so it creates more of a rim light there. It might be a little bit bright now actually, so, but remember this is sunlight, so we want it to be a little bit yellow. Change the color there. Maybe we'll bring this light down to maybe 40,000. Give that a quick render. Alright, so now we've got a nice rim light going on his helmet. Now we're going to prep to save this footage out. So let's quickly go to compositing. the compositing tab, and I would just want to add use nodes, and I just want to add a denoise value. Before we do that, go down here to passes, and I want to render a denoise data. Add denoise node, take noisy normal in there and albedo in there, and now if you see, if we go back to the render, it removed the noise from that image very quickly and roughly. Cool. Go back to our layout, to our scene, and I'm thinking maybe the world light's a little strong, so set that back to 1, render that out, and it's looking pretty good. Cool. Now I'm happy with that. Now this footage we need to render out, so we're gonna go to our render settings. You're gonna select a destination, so just navigate to your project files. And I created a image sequence folder where I rendered these out. Under render, sorry, not image sequence, I just created a folder, said render, selected that, said accept. Then I selected PNG, RGBA, 16 color depth, because that's going to keep the transparency settings or values. So it has to be 16 and RGBA. And then you can leave the compression at 15. If you want higher quality, just remove the compression to 0. But then you're going to have larger files, and it's going to take up a lot more space because you're going to render out 392 individual images. So you've selected those. We've got 60 frames per second. Those are the frame amounts. We're gonna the resolution is 1920x1080, and we're gonna render this out. If we're happy with that, you're gonna go click render and click render animation, and this is gonna now render all of those images. So let me show you. It's rendered them all out here, and it's literally just the mask with nothing around it. All right, cool. Now we're gonna pop back. Once you're done, you can close Blender. Obviously save your project file. Now we're gonna jump back into into After Effects. Now we don't need this information anymore. We don't need the solid, we don't need the camera. And we're gonna import our footage, our rendered footage. So you're going to go to render, and you're going to click just on the first image and make sure that PNG sequence is selected, and you say import. You're going to drag that in above your footage, and it already overlays it. Now what I've noticed is there's something wrong with the timing here. The timing of your rendered footage and the original footage doesn't match up, so when you start playing, the motion doesn't match. So I found a way to fix this. I don't know why it does that. Maybe one of you guys know, and then can you please let me know in the comment section why this is happening, because it's extremely frustrating. So for some reason I can see here, it says here my imported frame or project or mask frames is a 30 FPS frames per second. But I know we selected 60 frames per second when we rendered it out. So I don't know why it's doing that. It's not supposed to be that. So what we do is there is a way around it. I'm not sure how to fix this. So you go here to effects. We go just search time. You take the time warp, drop it onto your mask, and I'm going to set the speed to 200. And now it matches. You're basically saying I want to play the 30 frames per second twice as fast, which is 60 frames per second. So 30 times 2, 60. And then it matches the speed. Great. So if you preview this, let's just oh gosh, set the quality. And now you can see that our helmet is matching our character here. And it's looking pretty good straight off the bat. But as you can see, as I was saying earlier, is the quality of your render and your footage, it doesn't match. But this is where After Effects is powerful. You can play with the color settings and all those things to try and match that as best as possible. So I'm just gonna throw on a few quick settings to try and match the footage. So the first thing I want to do is, I can see that my original render, I've got gold trim, but his suit has silver. That you can change in Blender. You need to change the material to silver. But there is a quick fix for that. You can do that in compositing later on. So you can just go down here to color correction, and then you select color. Let's just see. Change to color. Drop it onto your mask. Then I'm gonna select this drop tool, select from, and select the gold color. Make sure you select the right color here. And you want to select change to silver. So that didn't work as planned, but you can just play around here. Gosh, it's not working as planned. Whatever. The best thing to do is just change it in Blender. Make sure it's correct when you render it out. So for now, he's just gonna have a gold trim. It is what it is. But as I was saying, you can adjust. Let's go to brightness and contrast. Then you can see there's not a lot of contrast in here, whereas our footage has a lot of contrast. So we're gonna just bump the brightness a little bit, maybe just adjust the contrast. And you can give it a little bit of blur, but you can play with these values until you get something really nice. Let's pop on maybe lumetric color, and then basic. I'm just gonna remove some of the color because it's too saturated compared to that footage. If you turn it off and on, you can see our footage is quite saturated and colorful, but theirs isn't. So I'm just removing a little bit of that. So already it seems to be matching. And then I want to just play with the shadows and highlights. So maybe our shadows need to be a bit warmer. So I'm just gonna move this into the warmer side, and the midtones can be, the highlights can be more. You just play around with this until you get something that matches. Highlights need to be warm. Midtones can be cool. Cool. And then once you're happy with that, you can save this footage out. And then you've got a final result. Like this. Yeah, and that's it. That's some quick visual effects for you and CGI. I hope this helped you guys out. Remember, I said just you will have to paint this out in After Effects, his hair that's sticking out there. There are other tutorials online on how to do this. I'm not going to go into that today, but you guys can go check that out. That's what I did on my footage. I did it very roughly, and you can actually see where I painted it out. You can see there's like a circle around his head there, so these clouds don't match those clouds, but it's so subtle you don't even realize. And what you also want to do, actually, I just want to note very quickly, is on your mask layer, remember there is motion blur in most footage, because that's what they said, that the secret spice, or the thing that gives CGI realism, is motion blur. So a quick way to do that is just to go onto your mask layer and enable motion blur, and when you render that out, you're gonna get a bit of motion blur on your mask, and there's already a bit of motion blur on his body. You can see by his fingers as he moves, and that'll kind of match, and that'll even add to the realism. But y'all guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video informative, and then you learned something. Thank you so much, guys, for watching my videos and like supporting my channel. Like I said, I have a goal to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I see that we're already sitting almost on 300 subscribers, which is fantastic. Like, it's growing so quickly, and I'm really, really happy, and I can only honestly just say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who's subscribed. It means the world. I know there is a lot of people that watch my videos that aren't subscribed. So guys, please consider subscribing. It costs nothing. You just click on the subscribe button, and it really helps me out a lot. It motivates me to bring more content to you guys. Yeah, it really helps. So guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video.
I never yielded! And as you can see, I am not dead! I never yielded! And as you can see, I am not dead!